Quaneesha Johnson. She's accused of shooting her boyfriend, Demonte Smith, after the two were involved in a domestic dispute. Police were called to the house, but left shortly after. No signs of physical abuse were observed. On the stand now, the 911 records custodian. The first 911 call was made at 10:02 a.m. on November 27th.
These were the last words Demonte Smith gasped to police officers before collapsing on his front lawn. He was 29 years old. The woman who shot him, Quaneesha Johnson, the mother of his youngest child. She hit me in the head with a metal thing and then shot me. Hurry before I die. But here's what makes this case absolutely terrifying. Just minutes before pulling the trigger, Quaneesha stood outside her home and asked the police officers a question. What would happen if I shot him in self-defense? The officers answered her. Then they walked away. And while those officers waited outside, Quaneesha went to her car, grabbed a tire iron and her gun, walked back into the house, and did exactly what she said she would do. Ring camera footage captured her children screaming. It captured Quaneesha yelling, "I told you I was going to do it." 3 kids witnessed their father die that day. So the question everyone's asking is this: was Quaneesha defending herself from an abuser, or did she commit cold-blooded murder? Welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, we break down the most complex and controversial true crime cases, the ones that make you question everything. Before we get into this story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a case like this. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was this self-defense, or was this murder? Let's talk about it. This story took place in Lithonia, Georgia, a small community just outside Atlanta with a population of only 2,614 people. It's the kind of place where neighbors know each other by name. Lithonia is nicknamed the City of Granite because of all the rock found in the area. But what really stands out about Lithonia is how safe it is. The crime rate here is 133% lower than the national average. Violent crime, it almost never happens. This is a peaceful place where families raise their kids without much worry. That's why what happened on November 27, 2022, shocked everyone. On that Sunday morning, police were called to a home on a quiet street. What started as a domestic dispute turned into something far worse. By the time it was over, a 29-year-old man was dead. 3 children had watched their father get killed. And the whole thing was captured on Ring camera footage, children screaming, chaos, and a woman yelling that she had warned everyone this would happen. Quaneesha Nicole Johnson was 30 years old. She was a single mother raising 3 children, each from different relationships. Her youngest child, just a baby at the time, belonged to Demonte Smith, the man she would eventually shoot and kill. Being a single mom to 3 kids isn't easy. Quaneesha's life was a constant balancing act. She had to provide for her children, keep a roof over their heads, and deal with complicated relationships. Friends and family say she did her best, even when things got hard. Her cousin posted about her on Instagram after the shooting. She wrote, my cousin, my MFN cousin. A pretty female inside and out, a hustler, a bomb-ass mom. Not just to her children but mine too. Y'all can never take away her good heart. To know her is to love her. We as a family will never stop fighting for Quaneesha. The post went on to say that while the rest of the world acted like they knew who Quaneesha was, her family wanted to show people the real her, the woman who cared deeply for her kids and would do anything to protect them. Quaneesha's relationship with Demonte Smith was complicated. On the surface, they seemed close. She appeared in many of his music videos. They shared a home. They had a child together. But behind closed doors, things were different. According to court testimony and police records, Demonte had a history of violence. He had abused Quaneesha before. He had also abused other women in the past, threatening to beat and even kill them. There were disturbing photographs shown in court. Pictures of injuries Demonte had caused to one of Quaneesha's children on the very day of the shooting. Quaneesha lived in fear. She knew what Demonte was capable of. She had seen it. Her kids had seen it. Despite all of this, she tried to make things work. When Demonte got out of jail after leading police on a high-speed chase, he had nowhere to go, so Quaneesha let him stay with her and her children. Maybe she thought things would get better. Maybe she felt like she had no choice. Quaneesha was licensed to carry a firearm. She had gone through the background checks and training required to legally own a gun. She carried it for protection, for self-defense. Her family loved her. They supported her. They wanted the best for her and her kids. But love and support weren't enough to save her from what was coming. Despite everything her family tried to do, Quaneesha was trapped in a dangerous relationship. And on November 27, 2022, that relationship turned deadly. Demonte Smith was 29 years old. He was an aspiring rapper from Atlanta who dreamed of making it big in the music industry. He posted his songs on social media, hoping to get noticed. His lyrics talked about street life, survival, and the struggles he'd been through. He was trying his best to build a career and make a name for himself. Quaneesha appeared in many of his music videos. They looked like a couple working together, supporting each other's goals. To people watching from the outside, they seemed close. But Demonte's life wasn't just about music and dreams. He had a criminal record. Not long before the shooting, he had led police on a long, high-speed chase. He was arrested and sent to jail. When he got out, he had nowhere to live, no place to go. That's when Quaneesha took him in. She let him stay in her home with her and her 3 children. It seemed like an act of kindness, but it came with serious risks. Demonte had a history of violence, especially against women. According to court records, he had threatened to beat and kill other women in the past. There was even a 911 call on record from a previous incident involving Demonte and another woman. The pattern was clear. When Demonte got angry, he became dangerous. Quaneesha wasn't the only one who suffered. During the trial, the judge mentioned disturbing photographs that showed injuries Demonte had caused to one of Quaneesha's children. These injuries happened on the same day as the shooting. The photos were so bad that the judge felt they needed to be considered when deciding Quaneesha's sentence. But Demonte was also a father. He had children who loved him. He had a mother who cared deeply about him. After his death, his mother would stand in court and deliver one of the most heartbreaking victim impact statements you could imagine.
I had a lot of things I wanted to say to you, Quaneesha. I sat in the airport wondering what I was going to put on this paper, and I realized that I can't read off a piece of paper. I know who my son was. He was sweet and loving. You know it. I have no empathy because you had no remorse for my son, and you showed no empathy for him. You deserve every single year they can give to you.
Demonte Smith was a complicated person. He had dreams. He wanted to succeed. He had people who loved him. But he also had a dark side, a violent side, that hurt the people closest to him. And on November 27, 2022, that darkness would catch up to him in the worst way possible. On the night of November 26, 2022, Quaneesha decided to go out clubbing with her friends. She left her 3 children at home with Demonte, including their infant daughter. Demonte agreed to watch the kids while she had a night out. He expected her to come home early in the morning, around 6:00 a.m. But 6:00 a.m. came and went. Quaneesha didn't come home, and her phone was off. Demonte started to worry. He called her over and over again. No answer. He tried texting. Nothing. The worry quickly turned into panic, and then anger. What made it worse was the last thing Quaneesha had told him before her phone died. She said she was about to get into a fight with a group of people at the club. Then, her phone went dead. Demonte had no idea if she was okay, if she was hurt, or where she was. He didn't just sit around waiting. He called her family members asking if they'd heard from her. He called local hospitals, checking to see if she'd been admitted. He even called jails, thinking maybe she'd been arrested. He was desperate to find her. Finally, around 9:00 a.m. in the morning, Quaneesha turned her phone back on. And that's when things got bad. Demonte had been sending her messages all night. When she read them, she could see how angry he was. He accused her of being irresponsible. He was furious that she'd stayed out all night and left him alone with the kids. But the message that scared her the most was this one. "When you get home, I'm gonna hit you." Quaneesha knew Demonte's history. She knew what he was capable of. She had seen his violence before. So had her children. This wasn't just an empty threat. She believed he would follow through. Terrified, she called her family. They immediately set up a conference call and brought Demonte into the conversation. They tried to calm him down, tried to mediate the situation, but it was clear that Demonte was still angry. Quaneesha's family gave her advice: do not go home alone. Get a police escort. So that's exactly what she did. Quaneesha called 911 not once, not twice, but 3 times. She told them about the threatening messages. She told them she was afraid to go home. She asked for police to meet her at the house. When she got close to her neighborhood, she flagged down a police officer near her home. She wanted to make absolutely sure that law enforcement was there before she walked through that door. Quaneesha was terrified, but she had to go home. Her kids were inside. Her baby was inside. She couldn't just leave them there. So with police on the scene, she pulled up to her house. She thought the officers would protect her. She thought they would keep things from getting out of control. She thought that with police there, Demonte wouldn't be able to hurt her. But what she didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that this decision to come home would change everything. And by the end of the day, 1 person would be dead, 3 children would be traumatized, and Quaneesha's life would never be the same. Police arrived at Quaneesha's home around 11:00 a.m. She had called 911 3 times. She had triggered her burglar alarm. The officers could see that tensions were high. Quaneesha was carrying her firearm. She was licensed to carry it legally, but the officers told her to put the gun in her car. She did exactly what they asked. Then the officers tried to mediate the situation. They talked to both Quaneesha and Demonte, trying to calm things down. But it didn't work. Both of them were angry. Both of them were yelling. The argument kept getting worse. Insults started flying. Demonte called Quaneesha a stripper. She fired back, calling him broke. It was clear that this wasn't going to be resolved with a simple conversation. Finally, the officers told them both to go inside the house and calm down. They thought that if Quaneesha and Demonte just went inside and cooled off, everything would be fine. But then something happened that would change everything. As Demonte walked past Quaneesha to go inside, he leaned in close and whispered something to her. "When the cops leave, I'm gonna beat your ass." Quaneesha heard it clearly, and she immediately told the officers what he had just said. She was scared. She knew Demonte meant it. She had seen what he was capable of before. Then Quaneesha asked the officers a question that would haunt this case for years.
Anything else? Get down and get my extra tonight. So when I shoot them for self-defense, then what? Because I'm licensed. So if I shoot him in my residency, because he's staying here putting his hands on me for the second time, then what? I will have cancer. You hear this, right? You heard what he just said? I'm going to get my ass beat tonight. So when I shoot him, and I can call the cops and get everything, I was just make sure you can articulate. I can't. What's going on? I can't. I'm in New York. You better really be able to articulate that.
And then the officers left. And now Quaneesha and Demonte were alone in that house. 3 children were inside. Tensions were at an all-time high. Demonte had just threatened to beat her, and Quaneesha had a gun in her car. What happened next would be captured on a 911 call that no one would ever forget. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. You think the police should have done more? Should they have separated Quaneesha and Demonte? Should they have arrested someone? Or do you think they handled it the best they could? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think. And if you're finding this case as compelling as I am, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more cases like this. Alright, now let's get back to what happened after the police left, because what comes next is the most intense part of this entire story. After the officers left, Quaneesha's dogs ran out of the house. She went outside to bring them back in, but while she was out there, she did something else. She walked to her car and grabbed 2 things. her firearm, and a metal tire iron. Then she went back inside the house, armed and ready. Once inside, Quaneesha told her 8-year-old daughter to call 911. She instructed her to tell the operator that Demonte had hit her. Inside the house, the confrontation turned deadly. Quaneesha struck Demonte in the head with the tire iron. He stumbled, hurt and confused, and then she raised her gun and shot him in the chest. The sound of the gunshot was captured on the 911 call. You can hear it clearly, the loud bang followed by chaos. On the recording, you can hear Quaneesha's voice. She sang "bye, bye, bye" over and over again as Demonte lay on the floor, bleeding and dying. Demonte somehow managed to get up. He staggered toward the front door, desperate to get help. He made it outside and collapsed on the lawn, right in front of the police officers who had just left minutes earlier. The officers rushed to him. Demonte was struggling to breathe, blood pouring from his chest. He looked up at them and said,
Everything first, bro.
Oh yeah,
Did she shoot you?
Yeah, before I die.
All right, lay down. Sit down here.
Those were his last words. Paramedics arrived and rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. Demonte Smith was pronounced dead. Meanwhile, the Ring camera outside the house captured everything. You can hear the children screaming. They're crying, terrified, calling out for their mother. The chaos and terror in their voices is heartbreaking. Investigators who reviewed the footage testified in court about what they heard. Quaneesha was yelling at the top of her lungs. "I told you I was going to do it." She had warned him. She had warned the police. And now Demonte was dead. But here's one of the most heartbreaking details of this entire case. Demonte had requested a ride share. He was trying to leave. He had called for a ride to get out of that house and away from the situation. The ride share was just minutes away when Quaneesha pulled the trigger. If he had waited just a few more minutes, he might still be alive. But he didn't get those minutes. In an instant, Demonte Smith was gone. 3 children lost their father that day. A mother lost her son, and Quaneesha Johnson's life and the lives of her children would never be the same. Quaneesha was arrested immediately, right there in front of her children. Officers handcuffed her and took her into custody while her kids watched, still traumatized from what they had just witnessed. At the police station, investigators interviewed her. During that interview, Quaneesha admitted something important. Demonte had not hit her that day. The story she told her daughter to say on the 911 call that Demonte had hit her wasn't true. As investigators dug deeper into the case, they discovered more details. They found out that Demonte had requested a ride share to leave the house. He was trying to get out of the situation. The ride was just minutes away when Quaneesha shot him. The charges against Quaneesha were serious: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, cruelty to children, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. If convicted on all counts, she could spend the rest of her life in prison. Quaneesha pleaded not guilty. She maintained that she had acted in self-defense. She said she was terrified of Demonte and believed he was going to hurt her, or worse. The case went to trial. The prosecution argued that this was premeditated murder. They said Quaneesha had time to think about what she was doing. She went outside, got her gun and the tire iron, came back inside and attacked Demonte. She even told her daughter to lie to 911. In their eyes, this wasn't self-defense, it was a planned killing. The defense argued the opposite. They said Quaneesha was a victim of domestic violence who had been living in fear for a long time. Demonte had threatened her, he had a history of violence, she believed her life was in danger, and she did what she thought she had to do to survive. The trial would become a battle between two narratives. Was Quaneesha a victim defending herself, or was she a woman who planned to kill? The defense told a different story. They focused on Demonte's history of violence. They presented evidence of previous 911 calls involving Demonte and another woman. They showed the jury disturbing photographs of injuries Demonte had caused to one of Quaneesha's children on the same day as the shooting. They reminded the jury that Demonte had whispered a threat to Quaneesha: "When the cops leave, I'm going to beat your ass." She believed him. She had seen what he was capable of. She called 911 3 times that day, begging for help. She was terrified and felt she had no other option. One of the most emotional moments of the trial came when Quaneesha's 8-year-old daughter took the stand. She testified about what she saw and heard that day. It was heartbreaking. The jury also heard the 911 calls, saw the Ring camera footage, and reviewed text messages between Quaneesha and Demonte. Then Quaneesha herself took the stand. She testified in her own defense. She explained her fear, her desperation, and why she believed she had to protect herself. After days of testimony, the jury had to decide. Was this self-defense or murder? The jury deliberated. They reviewed all the evidence, listened to all the testimony, and weighed both sides of the story. Finally, they reached a decision. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read.
As to count 1, malice, murder, we, the jury, find Quaneesha Johnson not guilty. As to count 2, felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty of voluntary manslaughter. As to count 3, aggravated assault, family violence, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 4, aggravated assault, family violence, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 5, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, we, the jury, find defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 6, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 7, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty.
Quaneesha had been convicted on multiple serious charges. She wasn't going home. The reactions in the courtroom were immediate and emotional. Demonte's family was devastated. They felt like justice hadn't been fully served. To them, Quaneesha had taken their son, their brother, their father, and she wasn't being held fully accountable. They wanted her to be convicted of murder. The voluntary manslaughter verdict felt like a slap in the face. On the other side of the courtroom, Quaneesha's family was relieved. She hadn't been convicted of murder, which would have meant life in prison, but they knew she was still facing serious time. The relief was mixed with fear about what would come next. Quaneesha stood there, trying to process what had just happened. She had been found guilty. Her life was in the hands of the judge now. But the verdict was only the beginning. What came next, the sentencing, would prove to be even more controversial, and it would divide people even further. Before sentencing, Demonte's mother took the stand to deliver her victim impact statement. The courtroom went silent. She described the moment she found out her son was dead. "They called me and told me, 'Ma'am, do you know a Demonte Smith?' And my heart dropped." She had to go identify her son's body. She had to see him lying there, lifeless. The pain was unbearable. Then she turned her attention to Quaneesha. Her voice was filled with anger and grief. "You took his life and said bye. You showed no remorse for him, none. Not for me, not for my daughter, not for his kids." She looked directly at Quaneesha and said, "A darkness dwelt inside of you. You deserve every single year I can give to you." A mother's grief is immeasurable, and she wanted Quaneesha to pay the maximum price. The state asked for 25 years in prison and 5 years probation. They wanted Quaneesha to serve serious time for what she had done. But Judge Shadia Dia Morris had a different view. The judge acknowledged evidence that the jury never heard. There was a previous 911 call showing Demonte abusing another woman. There were disturbing photographs of injuries Demonte had caused to one of Quaneesha's children on the day of the shooting. Judge Morris looked at Quaneesha and said, "Miss Johnson, I believe that you took all the necessary steps to ensure your safety after Mr. Smith had threatened to inflict bodily harm upon you. Then the judge criticized the police. When law enforcement arrived, they allowed the two people in this situation to go into the home unescorted, without any cooling-off period, which resulted in the loss of Mr. Demonte Smith. The judge believed the police had failed, and that failure contributed to Demonte's death. Here's the sentence Judge Morris handed down. 40 years total. 10 years confinement, 5 years in prison, 5 years house arrest. 10 years probation. Sentenced under the First Offender Act. Special conditions: Quaneesha must be employed, her children must attend therapy, and she must complete parenting classes. But the most controversial part? Judge Morris granted Quaneesha an appeal bond. That meant she could walk out of the courtroom free while her appeal was pending. Demonte's family was outraged. They couldn't believe she was being allowed to leave. Quaneesha's family was relieved. Outside the courthouse, Quaneesha spoke to reporters. "I'm very remorseful. Just because I don't sit there and cry doesn't mean I'm not mentally disturbed. I loved him, and I feel terrible." She also criticized the police. "I wish they had done more." Quaneesha walked out of that courthouse with her children that day. But the question remained, was justice served? So what went wrong? How did this tragedy happen? Demonte had a documented history of violence. He had abused other women. He had hurt Quaneesha's child. This created a constant climate of fear. Quaneesha felt trapped and unsafe in her own home. Despite 3 911 calls, the officers didn't do enough. They didn't separate Quaneesha and Demonte. They didn't give them a cooling-off period. They didn't arrest anyone. They just told them to go inside and calm down, then left them alone, even after hearing threats. This wasn't just about one night. It was the result of a toxic relationship and systemic failures. So how do we prevent tragedies like this from happening again? Here's what we can learn from this tragedy. Law enforcement must take all domestic violence reports seriously. Proactive intervention, protective orders, and temporary separation can save lives. Officers need better training to recognize when situations are getting worse. Mandatory cooling-off periods or removal of one party should be standard. Don't just tell people to calm down and leave. Victims need access to safe shelters, counseling, and legal support. Hotlines and community resources must be promoted and available. Laws that keep guns away from abusers need stricter enforcement. Safe storage is critical. Children who witness violence need immediate counseling and long-term support. Public education campaigns can help. We need to remove the shame around seeking help and encourage people to report abuse. Domestic violence isn't a private matter. It's a public health crisis that demands action from all of us. If this case impacted you, please share this video to raise awareness about domestic violence. It could reach someone who needs to see it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case like this. We cover the most complex and controversial true crime stories, and I don't want you to miss out. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there. This case is a reminder that behind every headline are real people, real families torn apart by violence. 3 children lost their father that day, a mother lost her son, a community lost its sense of safety. Rest in peace, Demonte Smith. Our thoughts are with his family, his children, and all those affected by this tragedy. No matter what happened in his life, he didn't deserve to die that way. His mother's pain is real. His children's loss is real.